Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters number 288. We got a familiar guest coming up on the show, and with us, as always, is our newest member of the Artcasters, Corey. We'll get to everyone, but we're going to do what we always do. We'll go around the virtual room and introduce ourselves and mention anything that we've got to promote. And before I get started, I want to apologize to everyone that is watching live or everyone that wanted to watch live, but then they were like, oh man, it's way too late, because I totally gave our guest the wrong time. But I don't know about everyone else, but it kind of worked out for me because I just had a new AC installed in my house, and it was pretty hot when we first. So now it gave me that extra hour to cool down a little bit. So bear with me. And hopefully you don't hear the fan. I got the fan going here just until it cools down to a normal degree. But all that out of the way.
Instead of installing AC, I just shaved my head. It got really hot this week.
I should have thought of that before we did that.
It's cheaper.
Yeah. All right. So you're on my channel, so you probably know where to find me. You can find me here at this channel on YouTube. You can also find me at Circworks, Scott Circlin. The main thing I got to promote is still my variant cover for Image Comics Ice Cream Man number 25, which is available for pre-order right now. So my exclusive cover, which is a parody of the Candyland board game. It's available exclusively through Surprise Comics. It's limited 500. I don't know how many we've sold yet, but when I first talked to the store owner, they were going pretty quick. So, but I think there are still some available. So if you haven't got that already, go check that out. You can go to surprisecomics.com. And I just put up a video this week showing my process of all that, showing how I put that together and everything. So you can also check that out on this channel. So that's all I got to say about myself and things that I'm promoting. What about you, Josh? What's going on in your world?
All right. Well, I am promoting, as usual, the book Two Stories, which is my graphic novel about faith and mental illness. And you'll notice I'm working on like the rough lettering and panel borders for book 2, but book 1 is available on Amazon, 122 hand lettered, hand inked pages. And it's still on sale for like something like $6 for a 122 page graphic novel, which is pretty cool. So go to Amazon, get yourself a copy of Two Stories by Joshua Kemble. And if you aren't really into like the Amazon thing, I'd recommend get it from your local comic book store. So go to your local comic book store and just ask your store owner there to order the book from Ingram. So yeah, that's it for me.
And to the newest member of the Artcasters, we've got Corey back on the show. Corey, what do you got? What do you got to promote?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay, well, I'll take that off there. You don't get to see that.
Yeah, no, you can always go to CoreyKerr.com to see some stuff. I've been working on the same project for like 6 months, it feels like, but I am going to finish that in the next couple of days. Hopefully, I'll be able to show it soon after that.
Yeah, you guys should subscribe to Corey's, especially if you haven't, because you'll think he's just like this insane, like, I mean, he's already unbelievably talented, but you'll get this perception that he can knock out a music video like every second, because that should be posting soon. So you want to be subscribed to be able to check out this like amazing animation he's been making.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah. So nothing recently, but yeah, you should see this in the next little bit. We're gonna do the festival thing. So I think music videos are different than short films. I think I can let it go before I do the festivals. I hope so. I might just do it anyway, because waiting was annoying the last time. So, but yeah. So that's where you can find me, CoreyKerr.com. If you go to /online or click on what's new, then you can see like all the random stuff.
All right. Awesome, Corey. And for our guest tonight, we've got Gerimi Burleigh back on the show. Jeremy, how's it going?
Woo!
Where can people find you? What do you have to promote?
Woo! It's Jeremy. You can find me at gerimi.net. And that's Jeremy. Weird normal name, weird spelling. The most recent thing I have to promote, I mean, Corey, you were talking about working on a project for 6 months. I just finished an 8-issue series that took me a decade.
Yeah.
My series Morning Star, which is Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. You can pick up the final issue of Morningstar at jeremy.net. If you read digitally on Comixology, there's a link to Comixology right there on the menu. You can jump over to Comixology, get the digital version. You can also get the whole series digitally, or you can also pick up the trade and which has the first 4 issues, along with issues 5, 6, 7, and 8. Whole thing's complete now. So yeah, I just finished that, and now I'm just an artistic layabout. I'm a vagabond.
Yeah, I was curious what you had, and I have to look through my copies and see if I have 7 or not before I order 8. But I definitely have to check it out and see how everything wraps up. But yeah, I mean, that's a huge. So you got another comic in mind, or are you just like, I'm done with comics for a little bit? I think that's where I might be. Although I do have another idea after I finished Young and the Dead, but I'm not. I still got another issue, a full issue to go, and I didn't just wrap up pencils on issue 5. So
Nice.
and it's
nice.
and I got about 4 more pages to ink. And then going on to flatting, coloring, and lettering, and then hopefully not too far. But that's me. What about you? What?
Well, I'll tell you. My wife said to me, if she had a nickel for every time I told her, "Hey, baby, I just had a new idea for a comic book," she said she could afford to be my publisher. So yes, I have more ideas, but what I'm doing is I decided to take the rest of the year to just experiment with new art styles, because the big thing for me is that I know that I need to be faster. I mean, but I also have been working, like, I told you before I came on, I was in the middle of a figure drawing class. I've been taking figure drawing classes like the past decade, for longer than I've been working on Morningstar. So I'm constantly working on my skills, trying to up my craft. So there's this constant balance and war in me between wanting to improve as an artist and wanting to speed up as an artist. And you would like to think, let me put it this way, I do believe that at a certain point down the road, those two things converge. They have that old expression, first you get good, then you get fast, then you get good and fast.
Yep.
Well, I'm still working on getting good. So, and the thing I found is I'm starting to get a little bit good, not dope, but just a little bit good. But it's also like that quantum physics of approaching the speed of light. Like each time I get a little bit better, I slow down significantly, because now it's like I can see each time I level up, I see so many more flaws that takes me longer to fix them. So what I'm trying to do is I want to just spend a year, first off, just not necessarily grinding away at another project, but just playing for a little bit.
Yeah.
But hopefully trying to find a way to have a balance where I genuinely can just be making something that's I don't want to say that I'm crapping it out, but I want to have something for my comic book storytelling that's loose and I can just focus on the storytelling. And then meanwhile, still continue to do like standalone art pieces and prints and do those things where I'm channeling all of that desire to be the best artist I can be,
Yeah, I think when I think of that, I think of somebody like Mike Mignola, who, he learned, if you look at his old stuff, you don't see what you see now, but he learned how to draw the right way. And then when he first started doing Hellboy and stuff, I'm kind of like, this is, it's very interesting, but it almost looked like a shortcut, which I think it is, but he found this style, but you couldn't find that style without first learning the basics and everything. But I'm sure the style that he works in now, he's a lot more comfortable with, and that he can put that stuff out a lot quicker. And it's so recognizable. I mean, it's just, yeah. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like that's kind of what you're looking for yourself, something kind of like that maybe a little easier to do, or not easier is not probably the right word, but just something faster, but still, something that's recognizable and people, and it doesn't look, I mean, you see the craft in it.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is the thing that, I don't know, gnaws at me is the fact that the desire to be faster is simply because that, to me, seems like that's the path to building an audience.
Yeah.
Because if people like your work, they want more of it. So it's a matter of being able to nurture people that are supporting you and to be able to deliver something to them on a regular basis. That's the only real impetus for being faster. Like if money was no object, then I'd be like somebody who puts out one issue a year. But but that's I do recognize that building an audience means providing them with content, providing them with work to actually experience and engage with. So it's trying to balance those two things.
Yeah, and not to get too off topic, but that's one of the main things I'm focusing on right now is building that audience. It's not always that easy, but anyway, with all that aside, what we're talking, the topic tonight, I recently did a video on Comic-Cons and how they're returning, and I kind of gave my opinion on it a little bit, but I thought it was something, but I kind of felt this was a discussion I wanted to talk with friends about, because I gave my opinion, but I want to get a consensus of what everyone on the show and people in the chat and what other people think about this kind of the state of cons after with things coming back after the pandemic and everything, and maybe what the future might look like, and if we're thinking about exhibiting. I think we might have some. Jeremy and I both, I think, when I proposed the idea of this episode to him, and the reason why I wanted to have Jeremy on as a guest, because we've exhibited side by side at Phoenix Comic-Con, so we got to, I think, just hang out and see each other exhibit, and I learned a lot from what he was doing, and hopefully he may have taken something from the way I do stuff. I don't know, but it was just great hanging out with him. So I just thought he was the perfect person to kind of have on and get his opinion, which might be similar to mine. But I know Josh is thinking about, he hasn't done cons in a long time, but now that he's got his book done, that's something I think that he wants to go down. And then as far as Corey, if you've exhibited like a con, is that correct?
Yeah, I did Salt Lake once.
Okay. Yeah, so you do have. I couldn't remember if you've done any, but then I remember you did Salt Lake. So yeah. So we've all have different experience with cons, different number of cons we've done, how long ago it was since we've done cons, all that stuff. So, and it's just it's a new world, because I don't really know what's going to happen as far as if it looks like San Diego Comic-Con, which is the big one, which, it seems like people are going to they're going to ease into it. They opted to push theirs back again and do another virtual one, but there are some that are popping up in person and everything. The weird thing is, before even, the pandemic or anything like that, I just decided that I was kind of done with cons before that, and I didn't re-up. And it was probably I didn't know, but that was a good decision, because if I would have done that, they would have had my money, and I would have got it back. And it's just like, but I just got to the point where I just saw dwindling returns, and I just saw things going more and more the celebrity route, and just less and less about comics. It's harder for, especially somebody who's not doing fan art. I saw the decline of print sales. I saw all that, just the writing on the wall. And I just got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I think I can do better if I focus more on online stuff. And I did that. And yeah, and it wasn't that I was like losing money, but when I factored in how much time I was putting into my booth setup and all that stuff and all the prep, then I started to break it down. Like, I don't know if this is worth it anymore. So I opted out before everything happened. But now that things are coming back, I don't know. Maybe it's going to be different. Maybe it's kind of like a reboot in a way. So but I don't know. I mean, this is just my, this is just guesstimation. This is just predictions. I don't really know, and I don't think any of us know, but I'm just curious to get everyone's opinion. So I think I'm going to start with our guest, because like Jeremy said in the email that he he was kind of a similar opinion that he probably isn't going to go back to cons. But I don't know. Based on what I said, are you in total agreement, or you have is there? Do you have a different take, or yeah? Go ahead.
There's wiggle room. There's wiggle room.
Yeah.
Because I watched that video.
Yeah.
And I was doing the silent nod and the slow clap. I came to a lot of the same conclusions as you, and really for a lot of the same reasons, and really at a lot of the same time. I think we have kind of discussed it offline a bit, but I definitely felt pre-pandemic, 2018, ish. I was really scaling back on cons, because I think it wasn't until like the mid 2010s that I actually was breaking over $1,000 in sales at shows. Prior to that, I'd been going to shows for years and just, first it was, making back table. Then after a couple of years, it was like making table plus, $100 here, $100 there. And it was slowly, for me, as small as that is, because you can't even live off it, but my brass ring was to just break $1,000 at a show. Not $1,000 in sales, $1,000 in profit. So once I hit that mark, I was like, oh, okay. This is the baby step. Because then you think if you could get it to like we were making $1,500 per show, and if you're doing, there were people who were doing 1 to 2 shows a month. And if you're doing that and you're making anywhere between $1 to $2 grand a show, it starts becoming livable. True, it's always up and down, but you're getting to the ballpark of a livable income. And the problem was I was moving in that direction, and much like you, later, closer to like, 2015, 2016, it was like I was going up, and then sales just started coming down. That was when people started talking about con fatigue. Because we've been talking about con fatigue for the past 5 years or longer. People kept saying, when are there going to be too many shows? When are there going to be too many shows? When are people going to be worn out? And I don't know whether whether it's con fatigue or oversaturation. All I know is my sales were starting to flatten out. And for me specifically, the reason why I said there's wiggle room is because I found that the added expense of flying to a city was what made the difference between me having a profitable show or an unprofitable show. Even if you're splitting a hotel room with somebody and you're splitting tables or booth fees and you're sharing a lot of expenses with a friend you're traveling with, just the cost of airfare was what broke me. Like I could still, like even coming to Arizona, just pay for a hotel. The fact that I could drive out there there was a couple of years in a row where Arizona was my most profitable show. There were like 2 years in a row where I was like, yeah, this is my jam. It was my desert. It was my desert home. Yeah. And it was great because I also got to see you. Yeah. But even that, my beloved Phoenix Comic-Con, it began to fail me. Mm-hmm. And that's no slight on the people who run that show or anything that they've done poorly. It was just what I started seeing across the board with any shows that were out of town. So what I said was, not necessarily that I'm not going to do shows out of town, but I'm not going to do any show that I can't drive to. And if I do a show and it's not profitable, unless I hear real good news about it, I'm probably not going to do that again. So I just slowly scaled it back to just doing shows in California. And even that, it ended up like the year before the pandemic, I think I did WonderCon and like one other show. And WonderCon is still kind of my home base. I don't think I would ever give up going to that show no matter what. I love that show. It's not in my backyard. It's actually a long hike from where I live in LA. But that said, it's still a show that I can drive to and then drive home and sleep in my own bed every night. So I'm going to keep doing that show. And then from there, I think I'm going to just dabble with other shows that are like farther out in the greater Los Angeles area and California. But I'm not going to try and just slam out there and hit like all the shows I can. It's really just a matter of I'm trying to find 4 shows a year, like 1 show per quarter. That's like a solid show that performs well for me. Right now I've got 1, which is WonderCon. So if I can find 4 shows that are consistent performers, then that's what I'd like to just have that be stable. And other than that, try not to, because I'm still in that phase, like we were talking about trying to get more workout. I still feel like I've barely scratched the surface on building a body of work. Compared to the number of ideas that I have swirling around in my head that I think that there would be a strong audience for, I feel like I haven't even cracked the surface. I feel like I've barely gotten started. So, I mean, the main thing is about getting out as many of them before I die.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that I want to loop back around is the con fatigue, because I don't think that's an issue anymore. I mean, people have been without cons, and I think a number of cons are probably, they couldn't weather the storm. So I think there's going to be less. But having said that, I don't know if you're going to see. I don't know if you're going to see some other like cons kind of popping up to take their place. I don't know if there'll be any changes, or if everything is just going to go back to, big celebrities. We're bringing in the big celebrities, and I don't know. I'm just kind of, that's the part that's kind of, I'm not sure about. I don't know where things are going to go from there.
Well, I never had a problem with the whole people coming in just to get autographs, because comic conventions are expensive enough that if someone paid, if they paid $80 to get into the show, or, if they paid, let's say they paid $60 to get into the show, then they paid $100+ to get a photo op with some celebrity. Yeah, they got what they came there for, and then they could just bounce. But, it's an expensive thing. You might as well walk around and see stuff. And I've had plenty of people who came who had no interest in comics.
Yeah.
And came just with a family member, or they came just to meet a particular actor or some celebrity. And then they still stop on my table, chatted, has a pleasant conversation. Maybe they signed up for my mailing list. Maybe they said, hey, you know what? I actually like this art print. I'll pick up this print. Hell, God forbid we actually get into talking about stories and they decide to give one of my comics a try. So I look at it as, if whatever it is that gets them into the door, there's potential there. It's kind of the same way that people, like, a lot of times kind of had some negative feelings towards cosplayers and feel like they were a distraction. Cosplayers are, they're part of the community. And for as much as they're having photo ops, they're having fun and goofing around, many, many cosplayers have picked up copies of my book. Some of them have posed with photos of my book for me to share on my social media for promotion. So I just look at it like, no matter, I always try to look at any opportunity I try to look at everything as an opportunity. Yeah. That's what it is. I try to find the opportunity in any scenario. I mean, with shows going back to the way they were before, I think we're gonna have to see how things go with the rest of the year, because I know for me, like, a friend of mine, mentioned the possibility of going to New York Comic Con and possibly being able to split a table with me, and I was just like, look, man, until this whole thing is over and everything's back to normal, I'm not getting on a plane going nowhere. I'm keeping my butt home.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, also, I don't know. I don't think you're going to be able, if you're having trouble, if you're having trouble not making table, but making the kind of profits you want before, I would think it would be even harder now, because there are some people that are going to stay away, and I don't think that they're going to be as crowded as they were, or something. I don't know, or maybe there's going to be some hardcore people that are just there, and that maybe they're going to be spending more money. I don't know. But I am in agreement with you that, yeah, celebrities are the big draw, and I don't want to get the impression that I'm totally against having celebrities in Comic Cons, because I agree with everything you said. I just think that, yes, celebrities are the draw, but you also have to realize that the thing that is paying to bring those celebrities are all the people that are exhibiting, all the little guys, and you need to take that into account and not shift all your focus away from the core, because I've seen so much of that kind of shift away, where it's just like, we used to have, carpet, we used to have garbage cans at each, or whatever, just little things like that. They used to come around and bring us water, and then it's just, I kind of noticed that at Phoenix, where it just, and whether that's, I don't know if they've changed, ownership or management or whatever. And then there was also that kind of whole fiasco with the crazy guy that wanted to kill the Green Power Ranger, and then they added, security, and that's very costly. So probably having to shift some stuff away. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, but I don't know. I still think I would like a little more focus on comics. Maybe that's just because I'm a comic creator, but yeah, I definitely understand that the celebrities do bring people in, and yes, there are people that and there's also a lot of times they would run promotions, like radio promotions and stuff, for just giving away tickets, and just have people, like you said, that aren't really, oh, we won this ticket to go to this Comic-Con. I've never been to Comic-Con. And I think I kind of like that, because I think that's a good way to introduce more people to that. So to this kind of culture and everything. But yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting, and I'm kind of curious to see how things return. But yeah, I mean, your hesitancy, and I think a lot of people's hesitancy to even attend, I'm curious how that's going to be. I don't think they're going to come back as big as they were. So I'm just wondering what some of those changes might look like.
So I do want to chime in here and say I have a table for LA Comic-Con in December, and so hopefully the variant doesn't kick up and cause that whole thing to get canceled. Right. But yeah, so I'll be boothing there, and then I'm splitting the table with my friend Ken Mora, who we've had on the show. And we're going to be representing Marcosia books.
Sweet.
But for me, this is something I'm kind of curious about for you guys, because my objective when going to these conventions has literally nothing to do with profit. I obviously don't want to have loss. But my objective is to sell a book, and book sales require promotion, and a lot of that promotion is just time sucks. Going to a store, doing an in-store signing, a lot of that's just a time suck. You're not going to make what you make freelancing, when you're doing an in-store signing most of the time. You might make a bit, but my point is I guess it to me, for me, and I'm not saying this should be everybody's objective, but my goal is just to sell as many copies of 2 stories as I can, and then get the word out about that book. And that's the reason I'm going there. So another thing is, I used to view conventions like this. I put this stupid limitation on myself for years, where I was till I finish that graphic novel, I can't convention or go to conventions, which was just a psychology thing to get myself to finish it. But even when I did conventions, my objective has always been, it's kind of promote first. The goal is to promote comics. And then the number 2 goal is to have a vacation. So it's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The neat thing is, with that objective, I have had times where I've killed it and made a very hefty profit, and I've had times where I made table, and all times are equally fun because I'm having a free vacation. Basically, if I make table and I make the cost of the convention, to me, making table also means making whatever your hotel expenses are, your gas expenses, all that. But it's if you're breaking even, you just had a free vacation, for I mean, now I will say it is exhausting to do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it doesn't always feel like a vacation, but yeah.
But it is also a complete high. It's very fun. You engage with a lot of people. You get to directly meet people who do buy comics. And you also get to meet other creators, which is a huge opportunity. And actually you get to meet a lot of editors, which is nice too. So it's a mix, but for me, my main, I'm just saying why I'm picking to do it. It's I'm going to try it. I'm literally booked for 1 con. I am very much where you are, Jeremy, in the sense of I'm not planning on doing national. I'm going to try to stick to California. We're fortunate to be in a state that we got some good conventions. Yeah. And we have some great comic book shops. And between Southern and Northern California, we have a whole gamut of different communities and groups. And so there's these huge conventions all across California. So I feel I will say whatever cons you're doing, let me know because I'm interested, and I'll hop on with you on them because they're super like it's something I'm super interested in. And with LA Comic Con, it was like I did the math. It's a little different. My strategy, and this is something I've talked about for years. I think I've talked about with all of you guys, but I'm trying my strategy. I've done it at store signings. And there's been times where it's been very successful and times where it's like a little depressing. But all I'm bringing are books. Like I'm bringing books and then I have some postcards and stickers. That's it. It's literally, you have my book. I'm not selling prints, even though I know if I sold prints, they'd sell more. Because my objective is not to go there and sell prints. Like I've sold prints. I've sold t-shirts. I do commercial art for a living. I don't need to have a commercial art weekend. I want people to read my book. So I'm like, that's the goal. Like that's my objective when I go to these cons. So I'm literally just going to display only my books. I'm going to have free stickers and postcards. And then it's just literally my books. And I've done the math and I'm like, the nice thing about having a trade is I can make table. I will make table easily at LA Comic Con with just a graphic novel. And that's cool. Like, that's exciting to me. If I make table, I feel like I've had a successful con. And I know I'll sell more issues if I don't have prints distracting people.
Yeah,
So.
and that is definitely interesting. That's one thing that, and I mentioned this on the video, but originally when you were talking about going back to cons, you had invited me to table with you. This was at a different, at Long Beach, which you decided not to go to. And
yeah, the organizer
LA,
there.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jeremy, if you've had a different experience. I was going to apply for a table. I couldn't even get a hold of the organizer. And the form where you're supposed to put all your financial info still says last year. And I'm like, I don't feel comfortable sending money if I can't even get an answer about a form. Like, so
well,
the
organizers,
that city, just not.
Yeah, the organizing of Long Beach Comic Con has changed hands, and I don't think I've done the show since then. So I don't have firsthand. I don't have firsthand, encounters in terms of saying yay or nay, but I haven't heard great things.
Got it.
That doesn't mean that I wouldn't try the show again because I always enjoyed the Long Beach show, regardless. In fact, it's never been about not enjoying the show or that it's been poorly run. It's just been that my sales were never great.
Yeah.
That said, the people who used to run Long Beach now run, I believe it's called Ontario Comic Con Revolution. I don't know if you've heard about that show.
No,
I'm
gonna have to touch base with you after the show.
Okay, yeah, we can
about shows.
I mean, there's not a huge rundown because I have not attended that show.
Yeah,
but friends I know who have regard it very highly in terms of both sales and organization, how it's run.
Okay,
so
I will say I was bummed because Long Beach is my alma mater. I used to live there. I used to live like right by the convention center, so it's like it's I want to be there. It's just they make it very hard to get there. Is my point.
Yeah. So but what I was saying was that what Josh is doing. I was thinking that maybe that might be something I might want to consider too. Is just go there with just my books. I was thinking just my comics and also my how to make comic workbooks because. And just see what it's like, because I do enjoy. Like everyone's already mentioned here, I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy the atmosphere. I enjoy all that. But you saw my booth, Jeremy. I mean, it's very elaborate, and I had all these different products, and I mean that's kind of what I like doing that. And I like having that brand, but
don't undersell it. Elaborate is underselling. Your convention booth is stunning. It's just absurdly but I agree, like you don't have to always do that at a con. Like you could totally do like a half table and have a blast.
Yeah, and it's a lot for people to understand what is this with all these different products. And because, and I sold all kinds of different stuff, but I didn't sell that many comics because there was so much other stuff, and it just gets lost in that. So I'm just kind of curious what the reaction would be to comics, and also I think the workbooks would do well because there's people. there's a lot of kids or anyone that wants to make comics. I mean, I think those would do all right. And so and lately I've been kind of getting my fix by just doing store signings and stuff. And I didn't mention this on the top of the hour, but Free Comic Book Day is coming up, so I'll be doing another one coming up.
Yeah,
and I enjoy
nice.
that. And in stores doing, I don't know if I would opt to do sketches at a convention, but I like doing those at a store. For me, it's just there's just a little different atmosphere when you're doing a store signing. So
yeah.
So I don't know, but and the other thing for me would be if I like. That's why I was thinking, well, if I go to like a Long Beach or somewhere in California, no one's ever seen my other setup and everything, so they don't know what that's all about. I think if I went to Phoenix and people came by and they're like, what happened to all, what happened to all this other stuff? Now all you got's comics and what, so, but there's
like,
kind of
so times are tough and you're like, no, I'm just trying something different.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, there's just so much set up. And I mean, I love that booth. I love the whole mad scientist thing. And I'm still of the opinion that if I went to a science trade show, I'd do gangbusters, but,
oh yeah.
But have you ever done a science trade show?
I was getting to that point, and then I started doing better with digital, and I got to the point where when I got digital sales, it was like I don't have to ship anything out. I don't have to do anything. It just and it's just kind of like, this is kind of nice. So at that point, I just kind of, I don't know. I just kind of moved away from wanting to do that, but there's kind of an interesting opportunity that might come up is that Surprise Comics, the store that I do the exclusive covers for and everything, they're going to be doing Phoenix Comic Con when it comes back around, and they were saying, well, would you want to come do a signing at our table? And I'm like, that might be an interesting way to do that, because that way it makes sense, and it's a little like, okay, so I can try this out without people being like, what happened to that other booth and all this stuff. So that might be something I'm willing to do just as a guest, coming in and do a signing. And I also always made the stipulation that if I was ever brought back as a guest, if the comic convention paid for my table and everything, which happened one year and it was great. But then the year after that, they didn't make the same offer. So it's like, and I think that was the last year that I decided to do con. So
yeah.
I mean, it's funny. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. It's just everything you were talking about. Like one of the things, you mentioned about just the idea of coming there, show just with books. That right there, I was like, I could go on that for a while, because I heard of a creator who, I can't remember who it was, but they would go to a convention. They'd have like cases of comics behind them, but they would just sit at the table, put one copy out on the table, just a tablecloth and their book, no banner, no nothing, just sitting there. Person would come by, ask what it is. They'd show them the book. They flip through it. They tell them about the book. Person buys it. They walk away. It's nice to meet you. They get signed. They meet you underneath. Pull out another copy, and that's it. And that's it.
Oh, you just had one book on the table?
Actually, that's almost like I was nervous about that, but then I was thinking about, because there are times especially at in-stores, where I've noticed, like, I'll have like a racked shelf with copies of two stories. If somebody buys a copy from a section on the shelf, the next person who comes by who buys a copy always buys the copy that was behind that copy. They never go for the stocked copy. And so that actually kind of might be pretty genius to just do one, because it gives the perception of like, there's not necessarily a surplus of this thing. That's interesting. I wonder if that would work psychologically. Like, I don't know.
It seems hard to get attention with the
I don't
one
know
book.
if I would do that.
Yeah. Because I'm
going
always
to have
of the
a
opinion,
banner, I'm going to have signage and all that. It's just all I'm selling are my books,
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of one book, selling one book, I noticed in the chat, Gary said he'd been that my appearance and my pitch finally got him to pull the trigger, and he picked up a copy of Morningstar Volume 1. So I just want to say thanks, Gary. I greatly appreciate that, and I'll get that out in the mail to you too sweet. So thank you.
Yeah.
But I this is what's funny when it comes to first off, one of the things, Scott, that I learned from you is the power of branding your booth. Like I felt like I had decent signage, but when you talk about all the things you have and how elaborate it is, I mean, I've watched it evolve. Like you mentioned in the video that started this whole conversation about how you went from back when you had the full-on lab with the pipes and everything. And I can remember.
Yeah, I had my table was a conveyor belt. It wasn't functioning, but I mean, it's big wood pieces that looked like a conveyor belt. It was, you know, it was cool design. I liked it, but it's just too confusing. There's just too much there for a show like that. Whereas, like I said, if I went to just a regular trade show, it might be appreciated more, but there's just so much to look at these cons. So my solution was just to scale back and make everything just black and white, except for the product. And also, no matter what way you look at the booth, there's a sign. So if you're walking, except in the back, which I'm totally against. You shouldn't put anything in back of your booth. Yeah. Where it's the other person's booth. I mean, I've seen people do that. People have done that to me, and I didn't not like that. But like, so I had the signs like if you're walking down the thing, there, you know, the aisle, there'd be a sign here, and on the other side of the booth, and then front facing down below the table. You know, just no matter what you look. So. So I thought my last booth was probably my best, even though it didn't have the conveyor belt, it didn't have all the pipes and the stuff that you see in the underground layer in the video. But yeah,
that was pretty. I still think your booths are really immaculate and amazing, and like just the fabrication of the signage and stuff is so cool. It's just like a step beyond. It's very cool.
It's well designed. That's the thing. I've seen your booth evolve over the years, but the one thing that's been consistent is the level of design. Like it went from more cartoony to more streamlined and more design oriented. But even in being design oriented, it was still fun. You didn't lose any of the whimsy, but it was more like applying more modern design to it. Like, you know, but in all of that, it's just like. That was one of those things where I've always held that up as a high bar to aim for, not in terms of necessarily having the volume of work, but having that level of craft. And I don't think I've ever hit that with my booth setup. But in terms of like the product that you were carrying, kind of maybe the difficulty of people being overwhelmed by the diversity, whether it's prints versus stickers versus comics versus, you know, fun packs that you would put together, all of those things. To me, I think that if somebody's just there and they have an enthusiasm for cool stuff, then it seems perfect. But then for somebody who's just, for people who may not necessarily get drawn in and for people who aren't ready to get lost in the world of science and whimsy, it might be, that's where you get the people who are overwhelmed, or they just like, it's too much, I don't see what I want, I'm not in. But that person is going to feel that way about anybody's booth, even if they have a stripped down booth. If it's not what they want, they're not in anyway. So I don't think you're necessarily missing anything one way or the other. But for me, in terms of the diversity of products being carried, I found that I got to the point where prints ended up being about a third of my convention sales. So yes, comics are still the thing that I sell the most of, but I don't know if I just stopped carrying prints, if I would sell more books for that same price.
And your approach is, I love your approach, because you would do the prints of the covers of your book, and people would see the print, and then you just go right into, oh, that's the cover to my book, and you present your book. And I hadn't really seen anyone do that. And just the postcard method, which I totally stole from you after that. You just have to explain your pitch real quick for anyone, because I mean, it was just what you're doing with the postcards and just bringing people in, and it was just, it wasn't carnival barkeep or anything like that, but it definitely brought people into the booth and got that conversation rolling. And I just saw him work his magic, and I was like, wow, Jeremy's doing this the right way.
Well, you know, we'll give the audience a quick demo, because my pitch is real short, but all it would be is I would have postcards with my artwork, with my comic covers, and I would just say, just offer, someone's walking by, offer them a free postcard. Because if they're willing to take a free postcard, then maybe they wanted to, I just say, care to hear about my comic? And they would stop by. Either they would or they wouldn't. Sometimes they just take the postcard and move on. But if they stop by, then I just tell them, hi, this is my comic. It's called Morning Star. It's Lucifer's Fall from Heaven told as a Western. And tell them at the dawn of creation, the universe is a wild west. It's a wild, untamed frontier. There's 7 archangels that are like the Magnificent Seven. Lucifer starts off the story as their leader. He's actually the marshal of heaven, because he wasn't created to be evil. He's supposed to be the brightest of all the angels. He's supposed to be perfect. So how does someone go from being the brightest of the bright to the darkest of the dark? That's the story I'm telling. Here's volume 1.
Yeah.
Take a look.
Yeah, and it was just it blew me away how many people, very few people turned the postcard away. Most people just took it. And I just thought, if you would have told me that before I saw you do that, I would just think, I mean, there's postcards all over the place. I mean, people usually set them on the tables and they're free and they just sit there all day. But that action of, would you like a free postcard? And just that, I don't know if it's just that free thing or what. And it's a postcard, but it works. I tell you, it works. And then the next year after that, I did the same thing and it worked for me too. So, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, this gets into a little bit of just common human connection.
I did, you know what, I did stickers though. I changed it to stick, so I would just free sticker. So yeah, and it was just a sticker of my brand. It was a sticker that said Circworks, and people took them. It's like, so, and my idea was, well, if they take a sticker, they're probably going to stick it somewhere. It's probably going to stay there. So maybe even better than a postcard. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
It is so hard to turn down a free sticker. And if you're a person who likes stickers, you stick them on everything. So that sticker is going to get use. And it's going to get branding because of that use. That's brilliant.
Well, even before I would hand out the postcard, a lot of it is just making eye contact with people. Like that's the whole thing is like, I stopped doing commissions at shows because I couldn't engage with people the way I wanted to. Because for me, I just watch people walking back and forth. And when they're walking by, if they make eye contact with me, I smile. And if they smile, I say hello and I offer them the postcard. Because you can see people who are walking by and they actively are trying not to make eye contact. They're like, I know I don't want what's in this aisle. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you have to sell. Those people, I don't offer them a postcard. They want to be left alone. Yeah. And when somebody walks by and I offer them the postcard and they just are a little bit out of range of the booth, they just are like, no, thanks. And I'm just like, I say, all right, enjoy the convention. Part of it is really just, like you said, the whole carnival barker thing. It's not a thin line. There's a very broad line between politely asking someone if they'd like to look at what you have versus harassing people. And I like to,
That's like that. I mean, there's a business, terminology for it too, which is like, there's 2 styles of selling. There's hard sales and soft sell. And the soft sell always wins. Like if you're going if you're going to a convention and this is the only convention you're ever going to be at in your life, and you're not trying to make readers, you're just trying to sell something, then maybe hard sells work.
Yeah.
Other than that, don't do hard sells because it turns people off. You can sell anything once, but to get repeat customers and get that growth that you want as somebody selling a product, or you want them to have buy-in on you as an artist, don't do hard sales.
Well, I mean, what is the
point?
I
like the idea of casually and very politely being like, hey, would you like a free postcard? Like that's an in, but you're not forcing it on them. And if they don't want it, you're not like, oh, come on. I think that's cool.
Well,
go ahead. Sorry, Jeremy.
No, I was going to say, people talk about marketing sometimes in a negative way, but obviously everyone, if you're going to sell something, you have to market it. And I look at the idea of the postcard, I just look at it as it's a sales funnel. That's it. I'm simply introducing them to my stuff. And if they're interested in it, they go a step down the funnel. If they're interested in more and actually look at the book, they go a step down the funnel. If they
100%.
So I've had people who have visited my table and sign up for my mailing list, and after 3 years, they finally say, I see you here every year and I have not bought your book. I'm going to buy it because I keep hearing about it and it sounds cool. I've had people who, like 3 or 5, I've seen me at a convention for like 5 years in a row, and they said, I keep forgetting. Like, I've had people come to me and buy my book on the first day because they told me, I've seen you every year and I keep telling myself to get it and I forget by the last day. So they said, not this year. Not this year. And I'm like, well, I tell them, I'm grateful that you remembered me enough to want to come back. I mean, never mind they could have ordered it online. That's neither here nor there. But, but the fact that they remembered it enough and it made enough of an impression that I'm like, well, thank you. I'm glad. I hope you enjoy it. The last thing, when you were talking about hard sell, the last thing I wanted for somebody to buy my book because somehow I cajoled them into it, and then they read it, and they're like, this isn't what I expected, or I just didn't enjoy this. I don't want that. I don't want my book in the hands of people who don't enjoy it. There's times when I will actually try to pull a sale. Like, I'll see parents with a bunch of kids. The kids are into the comics. They're flipping through it. I'll tell them, just so you know, this is more like high school and older. Like, it's more like...
I've had that so much at store signings. That's tough because like store signings, a lot of like comic, LCS,
they're family oriented. They bring their
I mean, like the guy's going in to pull his pull box and he brings his kid in, and like it's like a dad son moment, and then his son comes to my booth and picks up 2 stories, a book that talks about suicide and depression, and I'm like, okay, let me grab that book, and here's a sticker that just has a happy face on it. Here, have that. And then I'm trying to kind of dissuade. Yeah, that's a really hard one when dealing with the. So anyhow, my point is I just relate with that, because when you're making like material that's not all ages, it's really tough, because I love kids. I think kids are awesome. But yeah, my books aren't for you guys.
The other thing when you're talking about, you don't want people to buy your book for the wrong reason. The other one is the mercy buy. You see some people are just so sad. You're like, oh, okay, I'll buy your book.
Yeah.
I have seen that happen. I'd like to think that I bring enough of an upbeat energy to conventions.
No, I'm not talking about you at all, Jeremy.
well, here's the thing. I don't think I've ever bought something just because I felt bad for somebody. I have bought stuff because I like the person.
I've done that way more. Yeah, where it's like I probably don't really care that much about this book or the art, but I just talking to the person and they're like, yeah, I'll buy one. Yeah, it's more of that, I think. Yeah. But I wanted to get Corey's opinion as someone who's done one show. So after you did your show, did you just swear off Comic Cons totally, or what was kind of your experience? And if they start to come back, is that anything you might consider doing?
Yeah, I would consider it. I didn't swear off of it. I can't remember when I did it, but I think it was right before the pandemic.
Am I muted?
Oh, are you? I can hear Corey.
Yeah,
I can't hear Corey. I hear nothing.
Weird. You can hear him, right, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna pop out and then pop back in again.
Okay, well, Corey popped out.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Yeah.
Corey, let's see if. All right, I'm gonna
can
pop
you
out.
hear it now, Jeremy?
He's talking.
Dang.
All right, just keep going.
So
I think everyone can hear you. Can everyone in the chat hear Corey? Let us know, because I can hear him, Josh can hear him. For some reason, Jeremy can't. But
I don't know. That's weird. I wonder if it was when I got kicked out first. My computer crashed when I tried to render this scene. So
we got to pop him back.
so
Hold on, we'll get you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I tried to add him. I'm gonna stop.
I'll do it. I'm in control. All right.
I'm not touching anything.
Both Josh and Corey both Josh and myself were trying to let you in, and we were canceling each other out.
You know what's crazy is now I'm back in and I can hear everyone, but all of the screens are blank, so I can't see anyone.
Oh no!
I don't know. StreamYard is being a jerk.
I don't know that if you don't mind. I don't know if you necessarily have to see us, but.
I don't mind. I'll tell you this. I'm going to hit refresh on my browser and see if that fixes it. It may make me have to pop back in again, but let's just see what happens.
I'll just have Corey go ahead while you're figuring it out.
All right,
Corey. Sorry.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what I want to do. What I made enough to make money, right? It was a terrible experience because my next door neighbor in the booth right next to me was this awful carnival barker dude who was grabbing people away from my table, like physically pulling them to his table. And I was like, oh, and without saying too much, he's a guy that works at the school that I work at. So I like see him often, and I just one of these days I want to be like, dude, you owe me like $600. Like I figure you killed about $600 worth of sales. But I will say about Salt Lake, very few people are there for art or comics.
Yeah, I've heard that from Steam Crow. They exhibited there, and they said it was, for them, it was horrible. They said that they said that there was the Army or the National Guard had a booth there. I mean, like, what does that have to do with pop culture? I mean, I can understand,
Right.
okay, maybe not comics, but at least pop culture. I mean, when you've got the Army out there trying to recruit people, I mean, no.
It's like one of like one of those local events where the radio station puts it on, and like every dentist and chiropractor,
and stuff like
the
that.
National Guard and the ROTC, and like everyone you can imagine shows up to this thing, and it's like supposed to be like, there's one in my community, it's supposed to be like a thing for kids, and like every time I'm like, oh, dude, like half the businesses there have nothing to do with children. They just like got sold a booth or whatever. Anyway, so I would be, and the year that I went, a lot of the big names that like live in that area had stopped the year before. So like Ryan Otley, who like draws Invincible, he's doing like Spider-Man now and stuff. He stopped going. Will Terry stopped going. What's the animator dude's name? He does. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Skyheart is his comic.
Jake Parker.
Jake Parker stopped going. Like he literally made an announcement the day before the show and was like, "Hey, I'm doing a signing at this library for free during the con if you guys want to come." So like, I don't exactly know if there's like weird politics or something, but it wasn't a great show. I made enough to make back, everything that I put into it. But I think I'd be down with like doing like a smaller show in a different area. I mean, I grew up in California, and I feel like I like vibe with Californians better than I vibe with like kind of the Wasatch Front Rocky Mountain folk. And so I think like somewhere on the coast, I might try like Rose City or or something, Long Beach or something like that. I'd be down. But my biggest thing was, I just showed up, right? Having just recently gotten into art in the last couple of years, I was like, well, I've got some prints and some stickers and some stuff. And so like I had a lot of stuff, but it wasn't super cohesive. I mean, other than I made it all. And so I think if I were to go in the future, I probably wouldn't do prints. I'd probably double down on stickers. And then I think I would print a bunch of my Tongue Cut Sparrow children's book.
Yeah.
And then maybe like a little collection of some of my shorter story comics or something like that. But yeah, I haven't completely ruled it out. I think I've ruled out Salt Lake pretty solidly. So it was all right.
I was hoping to kind of set up something for Salt Lake, but the timing just didn't work out because it's like right during the rush season at my day job. But it's like, otherwise I might do a table at Salt Lake at some point.
I will tell you something about
because we have family up there.
It is huge. Like it's like, I mean, they opened it, and within the first couple of years, like it was doing giant numbers from what I've heard about other shows. And so,
yeah,
there's a ton of people that live there with very little to do. And so they do show up, but I can say this because I'm a member of this subculture. The subculture has this pioneer spirit, which equates to being exceptionally cheap. And so, so you're trying to sell them like a $2 to $5 sticker, and they're like, it's like a yard sale. Someone like trying to haggle and stuff. I'm like, this isn't what this is, man. You're in the wrong. It is what it is, and you take it or leave it. It's cool. I don't care if you don't want it, but the price is what it is. So it's a little weird. And I don't know. I mean, I've exhibited at a lot of shows as a professional marketer for like companies.
Yeah.
And so I think I might be comparing, like professional trade shows to like a convention, and it's a vastly different experience.
You know what though? Like, I'm curious because here's something I thought about. This is one of the reasons I've started kind of thinking I need to be there to promote my books, right? Why do you do trade shows as a business? You do trade shows to promote your product. That's why you do it, right? So like, you know, if you're a guitar company, right, you're doing NOM, like, or whatever, you're going to show off your new guitar. Like, that's the focus of NOM. Like, you're not going there to sell a ton of units. You're going to try to hobnob with people in the industry. You're going to sell some stuff. You're going to make some deals with buyers. Like, that's where a lot of key buyers probably go every year.
Right.
But the point is more about human connections, promoting your business, promoting the new thing out, and selling the product that you want to sell. And there's a lot of targeted conversations that happen before a convention where you're like, what are our highlighted products? Like, what is the thing that we want people to walk away knowing about our business, right? I think personally, I one of the reasons I want to just sell my books is I've been surprised at myself. Like, I know that about product, but when it comes to promoting myself as a business, I always forget that. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm like, why am I going to a convention? Am I going to a convention to make a ton of money selling art? No. I make that commercially. So like, I don't need that. Like, and I'm not saying I would hate it. Like, that's nice. Everybody likes money, but it's like, what do I want to succeed? What do I want to make money at a convention? And that's what I need to be pushing at that convention. And in that case, it was books, because it's like the other stuff, like, you know, prints, all of that stuff, that's great. But it's like, I think in Jeremy's case, it's awesome because if it's connected and it's cohesive with the comic, I think that would be the exception I might make, right? Where it would be like, as long as it's selling the brand of that book. But I guess my point is, like, I'm curious about your experience with it with trade shows and stuff, like outside of that, because I actually think some of that thinking when it comes to our own work, even at a convention, could actually benefit us as businesses, as opposed to like kind of thinking of it like as like this cash grab or like,
right.
Because I do think a lot of, especially when I was younger, like my first few conventions, I remember being pretty bummed, you know, and that's before I kind of figured out like, oh, you have to present yourself professionally and like have stuff front faced and all of the, you know, basics of a con. But what's interesting is even later on, like with the break I took from doing cons, I started reassessing and I'm like, what did I sell at cons? I was selling like skateboard decks that I'd done. I was selling like, you know, prints. I was selling a bunch of stuff, and then I'd move comics. But I remember multiple times where people would pick up a comic and then they'd spend more money. So I'd get a bigger profit for like a print because they felt like that was exclusive to the con. But instead of moving the comic, which was the whole point of being there for me, and like, that's the part where I'm like, I'd actually rather the person spend $20 on a comic and have if that's the thing I'm trying to sell, than $80 on my skateboard, which I'm not there to sell skateboards, you know.
See, and I would disagree with you a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, at least for me and the companies that I represented, the point of the convention, it wasn't like the New York Toy Show or something like that. It wasn't to move a product, because I was always B2B.
Yeah.
And so in B2B, and you're doing B2B now.
Yeah.
It's not the product, it's the relationship, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to show up that, you know, just the booth space is going to cost me $35,000, you know, to get all my salesmen there and all my marketing people and whatever endorsees and everything, you know, you're in 100K like before you get started. Right. Mm-hmm. And so like after that, I need 5 to 10 stores to sign up and to gain a relationship. And then I've broken even. And so the point for me was like, this was a thing for them to get to know who we are, so that we can have an ongoing relationship over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, so that they'll let my salesman into the door, you know, and that they'll let them buy him lunch, and they'll let, you know, like that type of thing. And so like, if I were to look at cons like I did trade shows, I would want to sell the skateboard decks and the stickers and the prints and the whatever, because it's all me, like what I'm looking to do is I want people to get to know me. And if they want to get to know me through stickers or through a book or through a bookmark or, a sketch or whatever, like that all helps, as long as it's got that longevity. And so my ultimate goal with the con is not like, I don't care if this con does it. I want this con to begin the relationship that over the course of, maybe 18 months or 2 years, they're going to stick with me and they're going to keep, viewing my things, watch. And so that's kind of, that product is part of that to me, but to me, I don't think it's the focus of it.
I even with the books only thing, I think you're actually hitting on a really important point, which I think is really important for people to know this too. It's like, most of my friends who have major publishers in comics met them at cons, right? Like, and they came by their booth, like the editor, like, and we're talking like not even just comics, like editors for like Simon and Schuster, like major librarians go to these cons. Like a lot of big players in industry go to these cons. So they
don't go to Salt Lake.
They might. That's the weird thing. It's a really small, like, comics are a really tiny community. So like, and I think Jeremy and Scott would probably attest to this for sure, because it's like when I was a younger cartoonist, I remember making the mistake of like kind of crap talking because I was like I was a fan. I wasn't like a creator. And so I'd like meet a cartoonist and I'd be like, I love your book and stuff. And they'd mention a book and I'd be like, yeah, I'm not really a big fan. That guy's kind of like whatever. And I didn't realize like that's the friend of that guy. Like, and I very quickly
his
learned
shoulder. It's like,
you know what I mean?
It's right behind him.
So I have learned like in the harder way than a lot of people who aren't idiots like I was when I was in my 20s, right? Like, I have learned like that it's important to be like really on and engaged and polite and nice to people in comics, because it's a small industry. And even though it seems like there's a big distance between like the guy who's self-publishing and the guy who's like putting stuff out that's like at major bookstores, like quite often, like they all started like by photocopying mini comics and selling them at conventions together. So it's like, it's a very tight-knit community. I think it's really, I really think that's one of the best things you get out of a comic book convention is you get connections with other people in industry, and you get visibility for your work to other publishers too. So I was only bringing that up because I do think it's very much that same kind of relationship building thing. And I agree that like selling any product could be that. It just depends on your business objective, right? If your business objective is to launch your own freelance career, then yeah, you should totally do that. I'm not trying to do that at a con.
Right.
I'm trying to sell my books, and I'm trying to launch my book career, not my freelance career, because I've been there, done that, and it's boring.
And this always goes back to my main problem is I have no clue what I want to happen with my art.
Which is funny because if you were the marketing director for yourself, you'd be like grilling to get that point. Like, what is your objective? Like, right?
Yeah.
So that's tough. I struggle with that too, though.
Hey, Corey, is it that you have no idea what your objective is, or is it that you have multiple objectives and you haven't been able to settle on one?
Yeah, that's true.
No, it's that I've got a day job that I really enjoy, and I am making things that I really enjoy, and anything else beyond the enjoyment of making things is just kind of just frosting on the cake. And so like I actually don't have time. Like if a major, if Marvel came to me and said, "Hey, we want you to do this book," I wouldn't be able to do it. You know what I mean? So it's not to break in. And I mean, if on the animation side, if somebody's like, "Hey, we want you to be the showrunner or whatever," I'd have to be like, I can't, like I don't. And so I'm not trying to achieve anything other than I would like a body of work that people enjoy, And so ultimately that's my goal. Is I'd like viewers and readers, but not for anything financial or. In fact, I mean, we were joking earlier. The last 6 months, I've been working on paid work, and I'm dying to get back to my own stuff. But the paid work is because I've been doing all this stuff and doing all these animations and showing everybody all this thing, and like clients just keep showing up, and I'm and this is always the weirdest thing to complain about. And I hope nobody misunderstands me, but like I appreciate the clients. It's great. But I don't enjoy client work as much as I enjoy doing my own thing. So
who does?
That's kind of, it's kind of a non-answer because I haven't given it the thought needed. Like if it was a business, right? I would, if I was my own marketing director, like Josh is saying, I would sit down and I would do a SWOT analysis, and I would do a customer profile, and I'd do customer journey breakdowns, and I'd go through the whole process. And it would all stem from like, what is it that I'm trying to achieve? But I don't really care what I achieve because I'm enjoying doing it. I'm enjoying hanging out with you guys. You know what I mean? Like this is all because we're doing art, and this is great. And I love talking to artists, and I love living the artistic life. And that's, so I meet that goal every day that I make art, which sounds so hoity-toity, ivory tower.
Oh, no.
It's like, I don't know. It's just, I enjoy it. So
when I hear that, I have to tell you that no BS, my heart is generally warmed because you're creating for the most authentic purpose.
Yeah.
You want to share and you want to connect with the people that you're sharing things with. And that is literally the definition of art. That's in its purest form. It's just, you want to share what's inside you with other people. Art is like, it's like a container for emotional telepathy, So I mean, maybe the goal is simply, since you enjoy the main paying gigs, maybe the goal is simply to say, I want to be able to carve out X number of days per year to do things that are person fulfilling just for you, even though you're going to share them with the world. Maybe the goal is just, if it ends up being like, 1 day a week or 3 days a month or 20 days per year, however it ends up being chopped up, maybe the goal is just, you're not doing enough. You enjoy the day job, but you still know that you don't get to do your personal stuff enough right now. Maybe that's a way to start framing the actual quote unquote goal, because at least that's something that you can say, all right, if this is what I want, what way should I approach conventions and sharing my work and any events in a way that will allow me to get closer to that goal? Maybe that's it.
And honestly, conventions, and this is a big thing that I will say, if you're a young cartoonist and you're just getting in and you barely have any money, really think about what you're investing in, because it is hard to make table at first. Like almost everyone I know, when they first start, don't even make table. And it's depressing. Like the first con you'll do, it will be a little bit, it's also exhilarating. You'll meet like some of your heroes. You'll get those like backstage moments where you're a peer rather than a fan. And that's pretty awesome. But yeah, definitely consider, like, maybe if you haven't done cons yet, don't start with San Diego, right? Like, you know what I mean?
I don't think with the waiting list.
Honestly.
Well, I will say this about money. There's been a couple people asking and answering questions in the chats about money. If you're interested in my experience, I did a full dollar for dollar breakdown video on my YouTube channel. And so if you want to see how much I made and lost and where I should have spent money and where I did spend money, I have like a whole video where I just opened up my spreadsheet and just showed you the numbers of that show. And so that if you're interested in what it was like for me financially for that first show, that's why I did that, is because I didn't find a lot of that out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that talk generally about numbers and stuff, but they don't throw down actual numbers. And so anyway, I did that, and I showed how many of each item I sold and things like that.
Awesome.
So
I think I will say though, the one thing that does get lost in this sometimes, especially with like people who've been at it for a while, is like it is fun. I mean, that is, I really do sincerely think that comics like fun needs to be part of the objective because the pay is terrible in comics. The sales numbers are terrible. You look at like record-breaking sales this year in comics and you compare them to like novels and it's a joke. Like we don't move a lot unless you maybe get licensed and get optioned as a film, right? So it needs to be fun. And I think that like the one thing I love about cons, and I do think, you know, we should not lose touch with, is the fact that they are really fun. If you're approaching it from the right perspective. But I think if you go to a con with the objective of like cleaning up and making a crap load of money, I think 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to walk out disappointed, even if you made a decent amount of money. You know, I don't know if that makes sense.
I've got a thought that I kind of want to aim towards all of you.
Yeah.
But particularly given that Scott was the one who started with the idea of, yeah, cons, you were out before, unless something major changes, you're still out. But I think it's a good question for all of you is, you know, doing not just panels, but actually doing a seminar at a convention. So, I mean, in panels, you're all with a group of people and you're discussing a particular topic. But, you know, there are people who, you know, work in different aspects of, you know, they have specialties. Like, you know, maybe they'll do a workshop on lettering or a workshop on storytelling. Some people will do like a figure drawing anatomy workshop, do a story, whatever your specialty is, that people will do seminars on those and workshops on those kind of things at conventions all the time. Now, that is an aspect that I myself have not taken advantage of at all. I've never applied to do a workshop at any convention I've attended. I've only been on a handful of panels at different conventions. But I think all of you have done a lot more in the educational space than I have. I've got a popular YouTube video that's on my writing process, and I've often said to myself, I need to sit down and figure out how to turn that into a presentation so that I can go to a convention, do that presentation, walk people through it in like 30 to 40 minutes, and then have the last 20 minutes just be Q&A at the end. And here's the thing. Let's say that you are at the point where conventions are not financially viable for you. You're not making the money that doing table would make it worthwhile. If you've got a good seminar for people, you could get, you know, you wouldn't have a table. You just have people bring you into the convention for free. I mean, that's free admission. Who knows? I don't know necessarily. You'd have to have a pretty popular, you have to have a name to be someone that they would pay for travel. But just in terms of being a show that you could go to, and you're not staying overnight, you're going for just one day, you know, whatever day your seminar's on. You go there, you do the presentation. You've got cards for everyone at the front and say, if you want to find out more about my work and where you can buy the actual things that I make, you know, please take a card. Instead of you hand them out off the table, you just bring the 500 postcards and you just have them up at the front for people to come and grab there. So, you know what? Take 2, take them to a friend if you like what I had to tell you about. You know, now, does that sound like the kind of thing where you're like, well, hell, even if I don't like conventions, I might do that a couple times a year. All right,
yeah,
Scott.
I'm jumping in on this because the light bulb just went over my head. But like these right here, I mean, have these things and do you know a seminar or just a panel. Like, okay, let's draw superheroes and just have those there. I mean, how many of these things would sell if I can hand out some sheets for free and then or you could just get the book. Or any of those workbooks that I have, you know, I can do one on lettering because I've got the lettering workbooks now. Or
Scott, that's
any of that stuff. I mean, that's brilliant. I didn't even think about that, but
that is a no-brainer when it comes to you too, because you do actually have like the subscriber count on your YouTube to like justify like a pitch of that. Because you could say like, hey, look, like I have this many subscribers on my YouTube. I talk about making comics all the time. I would love to like come to your convention and teach people how to make comics. And you could have a workshop and you could sell your making comics books and you could also sell Young and the Dead, you know. I mean, like that is, that's pretty brilliant.
Thank you, Jeremy. That's just
really
like,
Jeremy, that's
I just sprinkle the fairy dust. I just come in. I'm like Rick James. I just spread the magic.
But I think in particular, I definitely think for Scott, like I think that would be brilliant with the making comics thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually thought of doing that, and I applied to Adobe Max. Because what I saw at Adobe Max was a lot of people, the video people were talking about animating in After Effects, and the illustrators were talking about illustrating in Illustrator and Photoshop. But there was no one saying, hey, if you have no idea what you're doing with timelines, let me tell you how to take what you know about illustration and move it over to animation. And I actually think I would love doing that. I mean, I teach that often. And so yeah, that would be super great. Fun. I'd totally be down with that.
I'd love to see you do just like a like Adobe Max thing where you just talk about like joysticks and sliders, and people's their mouths just drop because they're like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
I think that would be perfect, man.
I think I've spoken out too much on Adobe Sensei being a spyware that's built into the Adobe software. That they're not really looking at me as a brand ambassador. But I would be down. I think there would be a lot of people really interested in like a Corey Kerr, Jim Lujan kind of team up of like, let's make stuff move. I think that'd be fun to do.
Dude, that's the name of the seminar. Let's make stuff move. Write that down. That's it right there.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Because it's not as hard as everybody makes it. I mean, it can get very complicated, but to just do some basic stuff, I think is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, Corey's got me to try just dipping my toes into animating in After Effects, and he's totally right. It's like if you approach it like just illustration, there's a little bit of timeline to it, but it's not undoable. It's actually very intuitive for illustrators and designers to learn, and the way Corey kind of presents it like demystifies it a little bit. So I agree.
The funny thing is I kept saying, Josh, just watch my videos. I've got a playlist, and you jump in and you do it totally yourself. And then you're like, how do you do this? And I'm like, let me send you a link to a video.
That also is just learning styles. Cause like for me, I only learn something when I do it. Like that's just the way I am. Like if I have an objective and I need information, that's when I learn best, Gerimi, so you're not saying you're swearing off all conventions. You're just kind of like paring down to more local, and then a little hesitant because of the whole crazy pandemic to like hop back out there, right?
Exactly. Well, there's two. One is paring down for the reasons you mentioned, but then two is the fact that aside from con fatigue, I think that one of the reasons why my sales started to slump is because I was returning to shows over the last, like from 2017, 2018 to 2019, I was returning to shows with not enough new product every year. I'd maybe have one new issue of a comic each year, and maybe I'd have one or two new prints. And I really feel like, one issue, it takes a long time to make a comic. So yeah, if I only have one new issue each year, people can understand that. It's better to have like maybe 2 issues. But with prints, I've realized that's the thing that kills me. In the time it takes me to finish an issue, the time it takes me to finish 24 pages, I can make 24 prints.
Yep, and you could make $20 per print or $15 per print with like an investment of less than $1 for them.
Yes.
So you're making a mad return on that. Whereas like a comic, especially a floppy, it's like you're selling that and at most maybe getting back like at like best estimate, maybe a third of what you put in to make it. So the return is not as good.
But
it is hard to justify. Yeah.
True. But there's something that Scott mentioned earlier that I wanted to make it a point to come back to. Because this is something I'm doing going forward. Scott mentioned the fact of my prints being connected, that I would sell the covers for my comics as prints.
I love that.
Well, here's the thing I realized, and I wish I had thought of this before I started the Western series I did. Not every print out of the ones I did sell. I mean, in fact, out of 8 issues, there's really only like 2 or 3 prints that sold regularly. The other ones, they didn't sell that well. It didn't affect people in terms of buying the cover. But that said, my most famous print, I made that the cover of my art book. And people all the time would pick up the art book and say, what's the story about this? What's it about? Before they flipped open. Like, they think it's a comic. And I'm like, no, it's an art book. It's a collection of my pieces. Like, oh, cool. A lot of times they pick it up. But people pick that up like, I want to know what this is. And only in recent years did I make the connection, And we all know that covers are meant to sell the book. But I thought to myself, maybe what I should do is when I have the next series I want to do, I should use prints as R&D / world development. And what I should do is I should just, before I even start the series, when I'm just thinking things out, to do prints of all the things I would want to be covers for before I've even written the series. Just when I'm just in my outlining phase and world building, to just try out different images as prints until I find the print that really, really sells. And then when I do, I make that the cover.
Yeah,
because
that's actually
the
smart.
Books, if I have prints that are selling and it's not even related to the issue, people are just like, I just like this imagery. And then I put that on the cover of a comic. Think about the comic will sell more.
Yeah.
So if I can go issue by issue and just keep trying prints until I have, let's say the next series I do is 6 issues long, and I end up making 6 different prints, and I take those to convention one season, and out of the 6 prints, only 2 of them sell. That tells me that the other 4 covers I had, I need to rework those covers. I need to come back to them and do it again until I have covers that really work.
You're crowdsourcing your covers. That's brilliant. That's really
exactly.
Smart. Why not?
So, and I'm like, see, these are things that I wish I could go back in time and tell old Gerimi, early Gerimi, no, do it this way. But I also know that past Gerimi is stubborn as all hell, and you can't tell him a damn thing. So he probably would listen. New Jeremy's motto is, I may not agree with you, but I will give your idea some credence. I don't dismiss anything out of hand now. There's things that I'm skeptical of, but I'm like, I try to be more. If life has taught me nothing is to be as open-minded as possible to all possibilities.
Yeah.
Hear stuff out, even if your instinct is no. I'm like, my instinct may say no, but I'm like, I'm gonna hear you out. I may even try things. I've tried stuff that I did not believe would work just because people I trusted, hey, try this. I'm like, as long as it's not something that's going to cost me a ton of time, I give it a try.
I feel like that sort of thing you were describing too, and this is going to sound really annoying to anybody who's younger or whatever, but it's I think some of that does come with season in the industry, because when you work as an artist long enough, I have never been in a position in my life where I know more talented artists. I know so many talented artists now in my life that I didn't know when I was a new student at a Cal State, in the art department. It's now I know industry professionals who work all over the place. And so I know enough about those people and about my own skills to know there are a lot of people out there who can draw better than me, who can design better than me, who, even if they can't do that, they have better processes than I have, for certain things. And it's if you're in industry long enough, you either have to be completely delusional or you have to start opening yourself up to other ideas, because you have wrong ideas. And then you see people with better ideas and you're like, whoa, that's better. And you start learning. So I love what you're describing, because I've had that too. In the last, I'd say 5 or 6 years, especially of my life, I'm always eager to find a different approach. And you're right. Even if there's a hesitancy where you're I don't know, it's I don't know. I've been wrong before. Like I've had crazy ideas that were completely wrong before. So why would I like? I don't know if that makes sense, but I think like I was equally stubborn for starting out, so I relate a lot to what you were describing. That's very cool.
Well, I mean, a lot like Corey, I've got a day job that I enjoy. I mean, I work in the toy industry, and I'm a product designer. And it's funny because if I didn't love comics, this was literally what I wanted to be when I was in 4th grade. I had to write a paper on what I wanted to be when I grew up, and it was toy designer. So I have what was my dream job. Unfortunately, this sultry mistress named Comics snuck in when I was in high school and wrapped her tendrils around my heart, and she's never let go.
Yeah, that harlot got us all.
But the funny thing I find is there's any number of reasons why I have to change things on a design. Yeah. Maybe something where our engineering team will come back and say, this product doesn't work, so we have to change it that way. Our marketing team says, you know what, this color doesn't sell, you need to make it that color. Mm-hmm. The buyer at a certain store says, you know what, that product is great, but it doesn't fit on our shelf. Can you make it smaller? Mm-hmm. There's any number of reasons why we have to change things. Yeah. And I have found, like, in the end, it's not that. Some people come to the job and they take any changes they're asked to make as an indictment on their skills as a designer. And I think we all know that we hate working with those people.
I agree. But I will say, Jeremy, like, part of why you're probably not one of those people, though, is because you have the mistress of comics. Like, yes. I think that it's important for artists. Like, I'm in a similar boat, too, where it's like I really enjoy my commercial work and what I do professionally, like, for a living. Like, that's great. But I also have a desire to create stuff that's outside of that, where it's like I'm not hearing, like a retailer or a factory be like, oh, you have to change this, or a salesperson like make changes for sales, that kind of thing. I do like having a ship that I'm steering myself. Mm-hmm. And I think if I weren't doing that, I might be that designer in-house who was like, you know what I mean? Because if that's it, then it's going to be, if that's your soul just being poured out every day, then of course you're going to take it personally. But it's like, for me, I have an outlet where I'm pouring out my soul, and then I have the stuff where I'm using my skills. And I think it's a little different. But I agree with you. I think the two are connected. That's my theory on it. I think the two are connected. I think if you're not pursuing art for art's sake, as corny as it is, as an artist, I think that whatever you end up doing that's strictly for money is going to make you miserable.
But here's where I'm going to bring it full circle. Yes. The thing that I learned in my day job is that often it wasn't necessarily that the people were changing my design and making it worse. Yeah. A lot of times, sometimes they may ask me to make changes and it didn't necessarily make it better. It wasn't necessarily better. It wasn't necessarily worse. It was just different. Yeah. And because I loved comics, I have my own personal thing, I didn't take those changes personal. I would just do them. That's the main thing about my job, is that most people at my work feel like I'm really easy to work with, because you ask me to do something, I'm like, all right, I just make the change. If there's something about that's logistically difficult, I'll tell them, just be aware that by making this change, it's going to change these other things. Yeah. If you're okay with that, then I'll do the change. Or I'll just let them know it may make this thing more expensive, or it may do. I'll inform them of the caveats. Yeah. And I'll say, that said, I'm happy to do this. Yeah. Or I may tell them I may not be able to do it. But I just made those changes. The thing I found over time is a lot of times things that I thought were stupid that I would never say to anyone else, but inside my heart I'm like, that is idiotic. Yeah. Those things would sell gangbusters. Yep. They would, and I'd just be like that. And so touching on what we were saying earlier, I realized now I'm less stubborn. I realize I don't know everything. In fact, I'm really starting to embrace my ignorance as I get older. Yeah. But this is the crazy thing. True, having my own personal thing that I'm very passionate about made it okay for me to accept that. But seeing how things evolve in the business world makes me realize, maybe I need to bring more of that to my comics.
Dude, that's perfect. That's really well put. I agree with both. Because I also don't think that we can make art in like a tube where we're just like, we're just pouring pure ethereal thought or whatever out onto a canvas, because a lot of the time you're going to make terrible work. Like we need an audience to present to, and we definitely need critique. I just like, I don't know. I don't think I can top what you said there. That was great. Inspiring, man. Jeremy, every time you come on, it gets me pumped. Like now I want to make like 10 comic pages. I want to booth at the convention.
Again, this thing, the whole panel thing and that idea, I mean, that was worth, for me, that was that was like a huge takeaway for me. I mean, that was just brilliant. I love when that stuff like that just like light bulb comes up. So man, there's a ton of value in this one, but we are at the hour-and-a-half mark, which is usually when we start to wind things down, especially since we started a little late because I have
to go to figure drawing class.
Yeah. But if we didn't go late, then Jeremy wouldn't have been able to make it. So So anyway, but let's start wrapping things up, and I mean, it's always great having Jeremy on, and we'll definitely want to get him back sooner rather than later. And this is kind of the conversation I wanted to have. And like I said, I got a ton. If just that one little nugget for me was like worth the price of admission. So, let's start. We'll start off with Jeremy.
All right. My website is jerimi.net, and that's spelled GERIMI.net. And you can pick up my comic book. It's Morningstar, Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. You can pick up the entire series at Comixology, and you can pick up the physical copies at my site, jerimi.net.
Yeah, and there's also a direct link in the description of this video if you want to just click on that. But it's not too, jerimi.net's not too hard to remember, but probably type that in faster than actually even go into the link, which isn't always the case. But we did put that link in for your convenience anyway. So, Josh, what about you?
Well, I just had a question for Jeremy real quick, though. Like, how many issues do you have left of Morningstar left?
He's done.
Well, I was waiting for him to answer.
Oh, sorry.
I was setting him up.
My agent has answered.
Comic starter kit.
Yeah, I threw that one.
It's an 8-issue series, and all 8 issues are complete.
Yeah.
Issues 1 through 4 are collected in a trade. I have issues 5, 6, and 7 available for purchase both physically and digitally, and I am working on assembling the trade for volume 2.
Dude, that is so exciting. That's a huge accomplishment, man. And we've had you on, I think, for quite a few years now, and it's cool to see you hit that giant goal.
Yeah.
That's huge, man.
I'm very proud. Thank you.
Yeah, it's inspiring for me. It's being, still an issue away. Not with the 8 issue. Mine's only going to go 6, but
yeah.
But I'll get there.
Dude, that is very cool. I'm excited about that. Okay, check out 2 Stories. It's a little bit different than action comics and stuff like that. This is a very personal slice of life story about faith and mental illness that goes into depravity and ultimately talks about redemption in a fallen world. And it's only $6 on Amazon, which is insane. So you should go take advantage of that and get a copy. If you have Prime, you get free shipping. And if you hate Amazon, then order it from your local comic book store. So yes, that's mine.
All right, and let's pull up Corey's. Corey, what about you?
You can go to CoreyKerr.com, and if you click on, I think it's animations, then you can watch some of my most recent animated work. I got 32 seconds of animation done tonight while we were talking, so I have 22 seconds left before this music video is done, which I might be able to knock out in the next 24 hours. So,
woo, dude!
But yeah, EndoXO is on that animation page, and I will be getting back to that at some point in time if I can ever clear my docket of client work. So go watch episode 1.
32
right.
seconds in this short of amount of time. I really want to encourage you guys be following Corey. He has like an insider track into like making an entire animation studio in like
45 minutes of that was rendering.
Yeah, still impressive.
Josh, in the time of you and Corey talking, I just bought 2 stories on Amazon.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you.
It'll be at my house on Saturday.
Yeah. I hope you enjoy it.
I am certain that I will.
And honestly, promise me if you hate it, you'll message me too and say like I didn't like this. I want to know.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah.
All right. Scott, how do people keep track of this crazy show of ours? It's like on your channel. Sometimes it's on mine. It's all over the place. But before that, I want to get good at comics. What should I do? What should I do relating to you to get good at comics?
All right. Well, there's a number of things you can do. One of them, if you go to my website at circleworks.com, I sell a lot of digital products with digital tools for helping you make better comics. I've got the Comic Maker Toolkit. I've got the free Comic Maker Starter Kit if you want to get started. I've got the, what else do I've got? I've got Hero Design Studio, and I've got a few more products that aren't on my website that are at other places that I'm going to be putting on my website pretty soon. So you can definitely check those out there. You can also go to my YouTube channel, and watch Making Comics 101, which is a free series on how to make comics on YouTube. I have I've got my books on Amazon, my Make Your Own Comics, Make Your Own Heroes, all those books those are on Amazon, and there's a link, on the front page of my website, if you scroll down a little bit, there'll be a link to take you to where those are. There's also links in all of my videos. So that thing. The other thing that I want to mention is Free Comic Book Day is coming up. It's not this Saturday coming up, but the following Saturday. And I will be at Surprise Comics, where I'll be signing and selling books and doing all that stuff. And also, if you go to surprisecomics.com, I have my cover that I did for Ice Cream Man number 25, an exclusive variant cover exclusively through Surprise Comics. You can definitely check that out on the website at surprisecomics.com. So that's a lot of stuff to choose from, but different ways you can support what I'm doing and get some cool stuff while you're at it and learn some cool stuff. But like Josh had alluded to, this show that we do, the Artcasters, we do this show every single week, usually without fail. We're pretty diligent about putting these up. We're at 288 episodes, so we're pushing along, creeping up on that 300 episode. But
yes. We need to have like a Spartan themed episode where people will tune out within a minute because none of us have the abs to sell it.
I noticed Jeremy's got an original art page of a Spartan and a Gorgon for sale, so we'll have to feature that.
Oh yes.
Nice.
But so yeah, we do the show every single week, but it bounces back and forth between Josh's channel and my channel, and that can get a little confusing. And every once in a while we might have to do it on a different day if things aren't working out. But if you want to know exactly when we're going to be on, whose channel we're going to be on, who the guest is going to be, what the topic is, you want to know all that stuff in advance, just join the mailing list. We don't spam you or anything like that. Usually about 30 minutes before we go live, we'll send out an email with all that information. And you just click on that because YouTube doesn't always alert people when we're going to go live. So definitely check out the mailing list. And yeah, I want to thank our guest, Jeremy. I want to thank all the people in the chat. And we will see you next week on Josh's channel. See you then.
Yes.